A few words, if I may, before we go on. The last video I made, the one about the Dornier float plane, did really well. Many of you liked it, and I want to give you my sincere thanks for all the amazing comments, likes, and especially subscribers that Scale Machina got in the meantime. Your support means a lot, and it's the only thing that can make this channel to grow. I will continue to make these videos, and I hope you will continue to enjoy watching them. I'm a slow builder, I know. This can be a good and a bad thing. I can have fun with the same kit for a long time. But this also means that these videos may not come as quickly as some of you and myself would have liked. I hope you will have the patience and that the wait will be worthwhile. Along with the current build, I will continue to make reviews of the old models that I've made, and also have some new ideas for the future. Thanks a lot again, and now let's continue. You have deceived our country and our Red Army. Our Red Army needs Ilyushin 2s as much as it does bread and water. Schenkman is producing 1 Il-2 per day, and Tretyakov is producing 1 to 2 MiG-3s. This is an insult to the country and to the Red Army. We need Il-2s, not MiGs. This is your last warning. On July 9th, 1941, some 2.5 weeks into the war, a strategic decision was made to relocate Soviet aircraft production eastwards, away from the risk of air raids and possible capture by the advancing Germans. The location selected for the new factory, named Zavod 122, was Kuibyshev in the Urals, some 900 kilometers east of Moscow. It was decided to move all the equipment and personnel from Zavod 1 as soon as possible. To start with, part of the Mikoyan's design team was relocated there during August of 1941. Relocation of MiG-3 production started in October. Lines in Moscow worked right up until the time they were to be dismantled, moved eastwards, and then quickly reassembled in often unfinished workshops. Conditions were bad. The basic amenities were lacking, and the personnel had to leave their families and friends behind. Autumn weather in Kuibyshev was rainy, but the winter brought a lot of snow and ice with temperatures as low as -35 degrees. Production rate was 1 to 2 aircraft per day, way below 10 to 15 made in the original factory. Same plant in Kuibyshev could also produce Il-2 Shturmovik, but the output was really low, mostly due to the lack of AM-38F engine. The loss of big factory in Belarusia meant that the only remaining plant able to produce this unit was the same one making the AM-35 for the MiG-3. The telegram you heard in the beginning was sent by Stalin himself to the factory directors and led to immediate suspension of the MiG-3 production and the rapid increase in production of Il-2, even beyond the planned volumes. In the modern day office, you may be worried about getting fired. In those days, you'd probably get fired at by a squad for insubordination. Speaking about executive decisions. Right behind the oil cooler duct on the side of the cowling of this MiG-3, you can see 6 vertical cooling slots, another identifying feature of the early type machine. To create these, I started by marking their position and size using a pen, and then making a guide for my scribing tool with a thin masking tape. Starting slowly, I used 0.1 millimeter micro saw to trace the position of each slot. This is another one of those tasks ideal to train the patience muscle. Additional challenge here was to match in shape and size similar cooling slots on the top deck in front of the cockpit. These were present on both early and late type MiGs, so they're also in the Trumpeter's kit. All in all, this turned out to be less of a trouble than I anticipated. If you still remember my dilemma from the first episode, I left the exhaust stack shroud on the port side as the late type to tell a story about the field repairs and claim some artistic freedom. Well, in the meantime, the inner policeman found out about this anomaly and beat the crap out of the artist, so I had to reconsider. So here I am, destroying to create again. And inner police was finally appeased. To create the weld lines of the exhaust pipes, I used heated and stretched sprue. Cut it to appropriate lengths and then use super thin welder to fix it in the position and shape it alongside of the pipe. Let's now take care of the wing root intakes for the air compressor. On the late type, there was a shutter that closed automatically when landing gear is deployed, but on the early type there was a simple grill. So I needed to remove the blank wall from the kit part and then add the mesh. I wanted to paint the inner side of the rear shutter for the oil cooler tunnels prior to their assembly. But before that, I added small anchors for the actuator rods. All this is visible if the shutter is positioned open, as I intend to make it. While in the swing of things, I wanted to cut and dry fit some of the main parts from the sprues. Starting with the main landing gear legs, and then continuing with the rudder and elevators. I will use this opportunity to show you how I make sure that the trailing edge thickness of these control surfaces stay in scale. The first step is to dry fit and check for any obstructions. And here we obviously have one. The usual suspect is this ejection pin mark. We can remove it by sanding the surface flat. This next step is crucial. Try to align two halves so that they touch along the trailing edge, but the front ends are apart. If you hold them like this, you can apply the glue just along the trailing edge. Let it cure like this before continuing to the next segment. Quick setting extra thin cement by Tamiya is perfect for this job, as you don't have to wait a long time for it to work its magic. And not just trailing edge, but really any long and difficult seam can be tackled by using this technique. By segmenting the job in small sections, you can achieve good results every time. As for the tail wheel assembly, I glued the two segments of the fork without the wheel itself, waited for it to cure, then cut out the axle, and finally drilled out holes through the axis of rotation. In this way, I will be able to paint and weather the wheel and the fork separately, and then attach them with a pin. Behold, the main landing gear according to Trumpeter. There are only two legs, no actuators, hydraulic lines, or any other details. Just two empty bays. I double-checked the instructions to see if I didn't overlook some parts perhaps, but no. This is it, folks. Looking at references, there will be a whole lot scratch building fun here. But this will have to wait, as now is the time to face the pilot. The Aerobonus resin figure is dedicated to this MiG-3 kit. However, I couldn't make it to wrap its hand around the flying stick properly. So I decided to make a small intervention on his fingers. The front part of his right hand was separated and glued directly to the grip of the control stick. In this way, I can paint the pilot without the stick being in the way and attach it later, repairing his hand in the final step. Zenithal lighting is a fancy term for pre-shading, with shadows and highlights created by first applying the black primer and then a thin layer of white sprayed from above where the natural light would be the strongest. It is all the rave in figure painting as far as I can tell, but not so much in aircraft modeling. Just for the record, this is my first 1 to 32nd scale, or 35th scale for that matter, figure ever painted. So don't consider my technique as anything but experimentation. The head of the pilot is kept separate for ease of painting. And with the black still in my airbrush, I painted other parts needed priming as well. In handling, the backrest of the pilot seat broke, so I needed to do some repairs using superglue. For the highlights, I used acrylic white primer by Hemo of MiG. Spraying water-based acrylic is never very smooth, but here it won't matter that much in the end, as the consequent layers will cover most of the graininess. Next, I wanted to paint the seat, and to do this with an airbrush, I needed to protect the pilot, so not to ruin the pre-shading. For masking this complex figure, I will use this laboratory tape called Parafilm M. By stretching it before use, it becomes very thin and flexible and can adapt and cling to any shape. I've bought a roll of this tape in the last millennium, and I think it will last me until the next one. The seat will be painted green, and for this I will use again a homemade mix of these two paints. There is no hard rule for the colors of different cockpit elements of the MiG-3, but there is evidence that the seat was sometimes coated in green. And by the way, this is the same green used as the base camouflage color on the upper surfaces of the MiGs. A perfect moment to finish the oil cooler tunnels in the same color. As a warm-up for the hand brushing work, I covered the headrest padding of the seat with black. It will receive a brown leather finish, but I find that black base will give it more richness. The boots were also painted black, leaving some highlights on the creases. For the uniform, I will use these two drab hues and the white for mixing. These are acrylics meant for Soviet armor, but I think they are well suited for this job as well. I started with the pants, slowly adding layers and increasing the tonal range of the paint. I would again urge you to find some better sources for learning how to paint figures, as my skills are quite rudimentary in this field. The pilot's jacket was done mostly in the same way as the pants, only with a slightly darker hue to differentiate the two pieces of clothing. Parachute, harness and seat belts were painted in light grey and ochre tones, and then the whole figure glossed over for a wash with Tamiya brown panel liner. When this cured, I cleaned the excess with odorless thinner and sealed everything with a matte varnish. Final details were painted using acrylic metallics. I could now finally add the control stick and lieutenant's fingers. What I'm showing you now is the first of several tries to paint the pilot's head. It all started well with the flying cap and the goggles. After the base leather paint cured, I applied some fake light refractions in his goggles using light grey shades. So far, so good. However, when it was time to paint his face, it all went pear-shaped. I will spare you another failed attempt and skip to the third try, which, as the story goes, was the charm indeed. This time, after stripping the mess from a previous fail, I started by airbrushing a base flesh tone. I decided to work on the face first, as this is the part with which I struggled the most. I mixed a thin dark brown wash using the Abteilung's oil shades for skin. This was used to define all the shadows of the face, and another light mist of the base skin tone softened the contrast. I repeated these steps until an acceptable result finally appeared. The rest of the details were also added with some success, and I called the job done with a big sigh of relief. Don't ask me how I will do this the next time. Water-based putty was used to repair Lieutenant's hand. This is a useful product in situations where solvent-based putty may spoil the paint finish. When it dries, this putty can be reactivated and cleaned by moistening it with water. Few final brush strokes were sufficient to unite the work, and the pilot figure was now completed. And with this, I think I can end my monologue, play some music, and allow for release of dopamine. Enjoy!